Welcome back to In the Midst. Today we are going to talk about realistic expectations and changes within a marriage. I know they kind of sound opposite, but at the same time they really go together. You have to expect changes to come. If you go into this thinking, how it is on your wedding day, how it is in that first month of marriage is how it's always going to be, you're going to set yourself up for failure. When changes come, when a situation arises, when your spouse does something that lets you down or hurts your feelings, if we don't deal with those properly, then we're really looking at just disaster to come. We cannot go into this thinking that love is enough. I love you, I like you, and nothing's ever going to change that. It's not how it happens. We go into this with, it's just me and you. And that's it. Our whole world revolves around each other. We don't have to worry about anyone else. Okay, we don't have to worry about anyone else. We don't have to think about anybody else. It's just us, and this is life. Here we go. Changes are going to come. Things are going to happen. So what do we do with that? My husband says all the time that we talked ourselves into a relationship. And while I understand what he's saying, sometimes I don't like how that probably sounds to somebody else. We had a conversation. We had those feelings for each other. The feeling of, I like you. I want to spend time with you. I want to get to know you better. We'd known each other a couple years before we ever had this conversation. So there wasn't a lot of surprises. There wasn't a lot to talk about. But there were still some things. You don't completely know somebody for a long time. So we knew each other. We had spent a lot of time together. We were just friends. We were hanging out. We'd go to movies, go to dinner. We were actually like dating, but we weren't. So it's kind of weird, but it's our story. So with that, we had a conversation one night, and it was, what do you want in life? Where do you see yourself in 10, 15, 20 years? Do you want kids? Do you not? Do you want to live in the city in a subdivision? Do you want to be single? Do you want, a house out in the country? What do you want to do for work? What do you not? And it was just a lot of, we can look to the future with our plans and goals, and we understand things change. Dreams, goals, plans are just that until, they're getting implemented into time. But if we're going in opposite directions, then this isn't going to work, and we're going to waste our time. We're going to have hurt feelings. And we didn't want that. We had a friendship. We liked our relationship. And I don't think either one of us wanted to necessarily lose that. But if we don't want the same things, then this doesn't need to go any further. So we talked about those things, and we had realistic expectations going in to our marriage. We knew that the other person wasn't perfect. We knew the other person had things in their past, things in their family. I knew he was raised by a single mom. I knew his parents had been divorced. He knew my parents. He worked with my dad. He spent time with our family. That's how we met. He saw the dynamic between my parents. He knew what I'd grown up in, what I was used to. We both wanted kids. We both wanted a boy first and then a girl. We both were at the time okay with me working. Kids go to school, I'm going to go to work. I had a desire to be in the medical field. We were just life. We didn't want to live in the city, in a subdivision, in a fancy house. Our goal isn't to make, $4 million. We were just normal. We just wanted a normal, quiet life together. Neither one of us were in church at this time. He had been out for a couple years. I wasn't raised in church, so I wasn't, that wasn't something a part of my life. So that wasn't part of our discussion of how are we going to raise our kids? Are we going to be in church? Is it important to you? Is it not? We didn't really have that conversation. We didn't have premarital counseling or anything like that. We just did it, and here we are. But having that realization, having that expectation of things changing, going into this knowing you're not perfect, that's really a big deal. It seems silly Like, you're not perfect, and no one's perfect. But when you first get married and you are so in love and you are so excited and things are new and we're learning each other, we're figuring this out, it just seems like it's just marital bliss, and we don't want it to change. And then when it does, and we're like, whoa, where did this come from? What do you mean you don't want to watch TV at night after dinner? This is how I unwind, and you think I'm crazy. Whatever the thing may be. That's not one of our things, but it's different. And the longer you're together, you start realizing we're not just alike in every area, and thank the Lord for it. Okay. I don't want to marry myself, but sometimes we don't know how to handle those differences. It's not, then Satan wants to come in and he gives us those thoughts of, you're not the person I thought you were. Is this going to work? Was this a mistake? And he's going to bring those thoughts in. So we have to learn to guard against that. But having the realistic expectation of, this is life. We know how things are right now. They're probably not going to be that way a year from now. We might not live in the same place. We might have a baby. We might have had a loss. We might have a dog. We might not. We might have had a job change. I hear so many people getting divorced over a job change. Like, I don't get it. But knowing that those changes could come, that's part of life. We take it one day at a time, one situation at a time. And at the end of the day, we are seeking to honor the Lord. If you're not seeking to honor the Lord, you're not going to honor your spouse. You're not going to consult them. You're not going to treat them the way that you should. You're going to be selfish. You're going to live to the flesh, to yourself. And that's just not how this marriage is going to work. So knowing changes are going to come, we're going into this thing knowing this is life. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know where we're going to be a year, 5 years, 10 years from now. If you would have asked anyone when we got married where we'd be 5 years from that day, it would not be married. No one thought we were going to make it. If you would have asked us where we're going to be 5 years from that day, it would have looked a little bit like we are now. Still married, 2 kids, living the dream. But by the time we'd been married 5 years, we'd moved from Tennessee to Missouri, back to Tennessee, and we were just getting ready to move to Colorado. Never been to Colorado before. And God said, you're going. We were faithfully in church, still married, and there was a change coming around that 5.5, 6 year mark that we didn't know. We got pregnant with our second child. It took 6.5, 7 years to get pregnant. We weren't expecting that. Infertility and not being able to get pregnant and all of that emotional, hormonal things that come, that can take a toll on your marriage. We were okay. But some people don't fare through that really well. Some people don't handle a loss really well. By the time we'd been married 5 years, we had already been through a 2.5-month NICU stay. Our first child was 3 months early. That's hard. You don't know what to do with this baby that's been given to you and it's all your own. But my baby wasn't even given to me. So now we have to figure out work and school and traveling 30 minutes to go see the baby, and when's the best time to go, when do we not, how do we handle this? No one else had preemie babies in the NICU, so everyone, wanting to give their opinion on something they have no clue about. That was fun. And so we were young. So now you have maturity that you're still going through, and you're learning to make your life into two. We're learning to be one flesh and all those things. We moved to Colorado, had our second baby, but while I was pregnant, no, it was a few months before I got pregnant. At the end of the school year, our oldest was in kindergarten, and God had moved us from the church we were at, took him out of that school, and led us to homeschool. We had never, ever, ever imagined being a homeschool family. We just weren't. Our kids were not going to go to public school, but they were going to go to private school, and I was going to work, and he was going to work, and that's just the way things were going to be. But God led us to homeschool. God brought some of those changes, and if we didn't trust him, if we didn't communicate, if we weren't going, okay, one day at a time, what are we doing next? There's no telling what could have happened. Some changes are hard. And if you're not communicating through those, if he's handling it one way, I'm handling it another. We're not talking about it. I've got a desire to go this way. He's got a desire to go this way. We're never going to meet in the middle. You have to realize changes are going to come. The dreams and the goals and the wants and the things that you have the day before you get married may never come to fruition. They just might not. Are you okay with that? Or are you going to be bitter? Are you going to blame your spouse? You know, there's so many people in today's society, we're a self-centered society, of my wants, my dreams, my goals, especially for the women, because it's becoming where we're not under our husband, and we do get to have a life, and we do get to be independent. We do get to be financially set and make our own money and, have our own friends and our own hobbies and all that stuff, which to a point, okay, great. But that's bringing us to be independent from our husbands, and we're almost living two separate lives. We live together, we're married, we might have dinner together, but other than that, I go to work, you do your thing, and I do mine. That's not a marriage. When you got married, those weren't changes that you were expecting to happen. So you have to guard against some of these things, because if you don't, we start running on autopilot. And when we're on autopilot for too long, we run out of gas and we crash and burn. And that's not God's desire. It's not what he wants. That's not what you wanted on your wedding day. And this can be prevented. So by this point, you know that you're not perfect. You know your spouse isn't perfect, and that's okay. But you are perfect for each other. The person you married is God's will for your life. That's just it. And God wants to help you make this thing work. Your spouse is perfect for you. Trials will come. Tempers are going to flare. Frustrations are going to occur. But if you hold on to unrealistic views of your spouse, that they are perfect, they are supposed to meet all of your needs, they should never upset you, they should never let you down, they should never raise their voice to you, then you are going to be heartbroken. It's just how it's going to be. And it's the same thing in friendships. It's the same thing in anything. When you're dealing with people, things are going to happen. If you don't guard against this, you can be left to the point of questioning your marriage, your spouse's choice, and you are going to be kind of resentful and bitter towards them because you are putting blame on them. I'm not happy. My emotional needs aren't being met. My physical needs aren't being met. You don't speak to me the way I think you should. You don't let me do blah, 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 blah. So you're the problem, and I don't like you anymore. Because we get really focused. And I'm not saying those things don't happen and there are abuse and all those things. We're not going to get into that. It's not where I'm going. But some of these things we have to be so careful for. The result of this is going to be contention. It's going to be an unhappy home. It's going to be an unhappy marriage. It's going to be just not what you wanted it to be. And everyone says the honeymoon phase of marriage is that like first 6 months, first year, it's gonna fade, don't worry. Why does it have to fade? We've been married 13 years and we still get comments of, oh, you guys still like each other, and oh, you're still in the honeymoon phase. It's been 13 years. This is just life, okay? It's not the honeymoon phase, okay? Why can't marriage just be like this? Why isn't it supposed to just be like this? Stop doing that. I don't know, because we're not working at it, because we think that, at some point this is going to wear off and you're just over there doing your thing. That's not why I got married. I didn't get married to be single and live in the same house. You have to understand that unsaid, unvoiced, unvocalized expectations will always remain as unmet expectations. Your spouse is not a mind reader. They're just not. God didn't give them that. Stop expecting them to do something that they can't do. Stop expecting them to do something they weren't designed to do. Okay? And it's just not fair to them, and it's going to leave you so unhappy, so disappointed. And that's just why. Why are we setting ourselves up for failure? It's really what we're doing. If you do not say, hey, this is something I need. This is something I want. This is something I wish you would do. Can we change this? I wish we would have more regular date nights. Can we talk about something that's a realistic goal once a month? dinner, movie, dessert. Let's just go hang out. Let's go get coffee and take a walk through the park. Let's just go sit and talk, whatever it is. Maybe it's let's get away for one night every 6 months. Twice a year, we take the kids to the sitter, we take the kids to grandma, we're getting a hotel, and we are taking a night, to ourselves. Get off work, have our night in the hotel. The next day, we come back the next evening, get the kids. It's like 24 whole hours, just us. That's not bad. We have gotten into this viewpoint, I guess, of I have to be a good Christian, a good mom, a good friend, a good husband, a good wife, a good daughter, a good son, a good employee, and I can't do them all. Stop. We forget that when we are trying to honor the Lord, we don't have a works-based salvation. We don't have works-based favor with God, and you don't have a works-based relationship with your spouse. It's not if I'm a better spouse, then they will be a better spouse. But when you are being a good spouse, when you're honoring the Lord, when you're honoring your spouse, you're being a good parent. Because if you are honoring the Lord, you love the Lord. If you are honoring your spouse, then you are loving your spouse. You're going to love your kids. You are. Your kids need to see you trying to be that good Christian. You trying to be faithful to church, faithful to the Lord, doing your devotions, treating people how God wants you to treat them. Okay? And when they see mom and dad love the Lord, mom and dad love each other, they are going to feel secure. You are doing what the Bible says. You're giving them that example to follow. You're bringing them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. So you're not having to pick one over the other. It's not, I worked all day, I was a good employee, I can be a decent spouse, and the kids are getting the last 10% today. That's not how it works. When you are honoring the Lord, asking for his help and wisdom and guidance and all of those things, the rest is going to fall into place. Our problem is we're not giving the Lord the preeminence. And that's where we fail. That's where a lot of these come. We can blame it on the devil. He's at work, roaring lion, seeking to devour. Got it. But sometimes we give him a little too much credit. We are living to the flesh, and we're not seeking the Lord. That's where a lot of our problems come from. But if you are not seeking to live biblically, you're not going to be communicating like you should. If you're not praying for your spouse, if you're not praying for your kids, you're not praying for your marriage, then why do we expect things to change? Over time, we all change, we grow, we learn, we mature, we form new opinions. Health problems come, family emergencies come, all those things. The person that you married is not going to be the same person a year from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now. Their opinions and wants and needs and convictions, all that are going to change over time for maturity, for knowledge. And they're also going to change as a result of being married to you. You are affecting your spouse. You are changing them. Are you doing it for the good or for the negative? Are you being a positive influence, or are you being nagging and hateful and rude, and you're causing them to shut down and build walls and not want to talk to anybody? It's up to you. You get to choose how you do that. Most of these changes happen slowly over time. From yesterday to today, my husband doesn't really seem like much of a different person. But from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, he is. And that's okay. As long as we're changing, toward the positive side of things. People say, you changed, we grew apart. This is a choice. I firmly believe that. You can choose to grow together, or you can choose to grow apart. Scripture doesn't talk about falling in and out of love. Love is a choice. So choosing your spouse, choosing to stay together, this is a choice. How do we grow together? We communicate. If you say, hey, I just don't really feel like this is appropriate anymore. I don't want to participate in this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to start doing this. I feel like we need to, exercise more, or go to church, or stop watching TV, whatever the thing is. If you just start doing that by yourself, in 3 months, your spouse is like, man, why don't we ever do this anymore? Or why are you going to the gym all the time? Or whatever. You didn't communicate, hey, I feel like I need to do this. I feel like we need to do this. And now to them, they're just looking at the outside and you're just changing. You're doing all these things and they don't know why. You're making choices. You're doing all this and it looks like you're just doing your own thing. And I was left here. I didn't move. And you did. So now it feels like we've grown apart. If you're not nurturing your relationship, if you're not being intentional with your marriage, then you're choosing to grow apart. If you're not taking that time for the vacation, the couples retreat, the date night, the staying up late and watching TV and eating junk food in bed when the kids go to bed, little things that take no money. It's just time. It's just effort. But if you're not willing to give that time and effort to your spouse, then your marriage is going to grow apart. You're either going to grow and thrive or you're going to dissolve. That's it. Your marriage isn't going to stay up here on cloud 9, happy and healthy and growing and thriving and being great by accident or just because we want it to. You have to do something to make that happen. It's okay. It's necessary to check in with your spouse and say, are we doing okay? I feel like we're okay. But do you think so? Is there something that you think needs to change? Is there something that I've done or I'm doing that bothers you? You just haven't wanted to talk about. You haven't found a space to say, hey, what's going on? Ask that. Ask, are we doing okay? It's not because something's wrong. It's not because they're angry. You just need to ask. Give each other that safe space, that time to go, actually, can we talk about this? And don't turn this into an argument. How you handle these conversations, how you handle these changes is super, super important. The health of your marriage really depends on it. So what are you going to do? Are you going to turn this into an argument and be hateful? Or are you just going to be a mature adult and talk about it and listen to your spouse? Listen to what they have to say. Listen to how they feel. You want to be listened to. So do they. Be present. We struggle with this, especially in the day of social media. We're on Pinterest and Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok and everything else. Everyone else has our attention except for the person we chose to spend the rest of our life with. The person you vowed to love, honor, cherish is now being pushed off to the side in a corner and your phone has taken precedence over it. It's not what marriage is supposed to be like. We are not promised tomorrow. God does not owe us any amount of time at all. Psalm 90 verse 12 says, so teach us to number our days that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. James chapter 4, most of you know, verses 13 through 15. Go to now, ye that say today or tomorrow, and we will go into such a city and continue there a year and buy and sell and get gain. Whereas ye know not what shall be on the morrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appeareth for a little time and then vanisheth away. For ye ought to say, if the Lord will, we shall live and do this or that. It's okay to have plans and goals and dreams, but give those to the Lord. Talk about them with your spouse. And just say in prayer for wisdom because, things are going to come around the corner that you didn't see coming. And if you're not walking with the Lord, if you're not asking for wisdom, you're not going to know how to handle those. Your marriage dynamic is also going to change if and when you have children. I feel like this is something that's not talked about enough. When you find out you're expecting, everyone says spend time together now, sleep while you can, and good luck. What kind of marriage advice is that? Who thought that was acceptable to make this look like it's the worst choice we've ever made? You are still husband and wife first, even after you become mom and dad. Your kids need to see that. Everyone, do this now because you won't be able to. Do that now because that's about to change. You're not going to be able to have time together for the next 18 years. Okay, thanks. Why does it seem so miserable when things change? It's because the kids come. it's easy. We get into exhaustion mode, and we get into self-preservation of, I need to sleep, and that's all that I can do right now because I can't function. I got 2 kids. I was there, okay? But it doesn't have to bring destruction to your marriage. It doesn't have to bring an end to that marital bliss we've been experiencing. You know, there's some things that you're going to have to temporarily give up, and that's okay, as long as you acknowledge we are temporarily setting this aside. But some people don't. They're not giving up that once a week date night. Doesn't matter. Our baby can go to grandma's and we're going to have this date night. That's okay. Don't feel guilty for taking time for yourselves, because after those kids are gone in 18, 20 years, you don't want to sit across from the breakfast table and look at your spouse and say, I don't know you anymore. Kids are gone. What are we supposed to do now? Why are we still married? That happens a lot. Don't get discouraged as you adjust to being new parents. Maybe you go grocery shopping and have lunch together now, but after the baby comes, it's easier for just one of you to go. That's okay. Instead of skipping the lunch date, maybe you pick up something through the drive-thru on the way home, we put the baby down for a nap, we're going to sit on the couch, we're going to sit across at the table and look at each other and talk and have lunch and just enjoy being together. That's okay. You're going to have to learn to improvise and adapt. Please stop. I'm not answering questions right now. No. So that's okay. Having date nights in is just as valid as going out. There's nothing wrong with that. Do not compare yourself, your phase in life, to everybody else. Okay, you're going to get discouraged. We know that. We know comparison is the thief of joy. Stay in church. It's very hard to be up all night with a baby and then get up at 8 o'clock in the morning to get everybody ready and dressed and out the door and fix your hair and makeup and look like you've got it all together. You don't have to. It's okay to go to church with no makeup on. It's okay to throw your hair in a ponytail and go to church. Stay in church. Take your baby to church. Continue your devotions. I know after my second, there was a long time I didn't have my devotions. I didn't have them regularly. I was exhausted, and that was kind of the first thing to go. We were still in church pretty well, but I just didn't. I was in kind of a dark place spiritually. I went to church, but I really didn't get something out of it like I hoped, like I thought I would, like I thought I should. So I didn't have my devotions because I thought, what's the point? I'm not getting anything out of this anyway. But not having my devotions affected everything. When my husband looked at me and said, how long has it been since you had your devotions? I just, okay, I get it. I need to start doing that again. So when you start neglecting your spiritual life, everything else is going to suffer from that. I understand germs, especially in the world of COVID, and I understand all these things. My second was with me until she was over 9 months old. She stayed in her infant carrier. Stop doing that. She stayed in her infant carrier with a blanket over her in the service. If she started to get fussy, I'd take her out and I'd keep her right there. I'd pump and take a bottle with me and just feed her right there in the service. Didn't let anyone hold her, touch her. Definitely wasn't going to leave her in the nursery. And this was 5.5, 6 years ago. So I understand that. And I understand we have live stream, but it's too easy to just live stream and say, I got my message, I got church. But we're not having that fellowship anymore. So just be careful to keep a balance. Pray and ask God what he would want you to do. Ask him to protect your baby and their health. He will. He's not blind to the needs and health of your baby, okay? He's taking care of you. He takes care of the sparrows. Your baby's no different. Once you are mom and dad, it's easy to put yourself, your spouse on the back burner and think, I'll get back to you in a year or two. That's not how this works. It doesn't happen. Your needs, wants, desires don't change. They don't stop. They don't get put on hold just because the babies come. You're going to be adjusting to new routines. You're going to be sleep deprived. Your hormones are going to be out of balance. That's normal. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with your spouse. Things will get back to normal. You just have to work through it But doing that together, because you're going to need that support system, doing that together is going to be the goal to make this happen. You have to extend grace to your spouse, especially if this is your first. Especially for your husband. Your husband doesn't know how to handle the crying baby. Your husband, you have that nurturing intuition. You just kind of just do it. You can do it in your sleep. You know what to do. Your husband doesn't have that. Your husband doesn't know what to do with your out of whack hormones. He doesn't want to make you mad. He doesn't want to make it worse. So often it's easier to just sit back and do nothing and wait to be told what to do. And I'm not trying to, be derogatory towards our husbands, but they just kind of go on autopilot. They just don't really know what to do. Don't fault him for that. Teach him. Talk to him. Say what your needs are. If you're not saying what they are and they don't get met, it's not his fault, okay? Just give grace. Do not place expectations on your spouse that they are not meant to fulfill. Your spouse is great. Marriage is wonderful. We have responsibilities to meet physical, emotional, spiritual needs, all that stuff. But there are some things that only God can meet. Your spouse might be able to meet like 10%, but the rest of it is God. You have to stay in prayer. Do not put those expectations on your spouse to do and meet things that only God can do. God's given us the gift and benefit of marriage, but God is still supposed to be our ultimate sufficiency. That's just it. You can't change your spouse. You don't need to manipulate your spouse into being what you think they should be. You have to pray. Pray for them. Pray for God to work in their life. Pray for spiritual wisdom, discernment. Pray for you to be patient and give grace. All of that. You can't change your spouse. God can. God is going to give your spouse wisdom. God is going to give, especially for the husband, God is going to give him direction and wisdom that he might not ever give you. But if you're walking with the Lord, you're going to trust him and you're going to trust your husband. If you're praying for your husband, it's going to be easier to trust him. So things are going to come. Things are going to change. Who you are today is not who you're going to be a year or two from now. Same for your spouse. That's okay. New phases in life with the kids. The death of a parent. All those things are going to change and shape us. Just make sure you're walking together, you're communicating, and you're changing together. So, stop talking to her, please. Stop. And so just keep your desire to the Lord. Stay faithful to him. Stay in the word. Stay close to the shepherd and let him lead you in paths of righteousness.
Bye-bye.